Thank you for joining us around the fire. For more information or to make a donation, please visit randomactsnetwork.com. Now, want to hear a scary story?
Mr. Rivers was known for his temper and for taking it out on his students. No one dared misbehave in his classroom after rumors spread of his horrible punishments from back in the day. He once forced a boy to hold his nose in the corner of the room for so long, he fainted and cracked his head open. None of the other students dared say anything. Another kid had to stay after class and rewrite sentences thousands of times. Mr. Rivers went home for the night, but the boy was too scared to move without completing the task, and he stayed in the desk for 2 days straight. He didn't speak to anyone else again and left the school at the end of the year. But the worst tale was a young girl who snuck out of class one afternoon, enraging Mr. Rivers. The following day, he locked her in a closet. Her friends stayed after school to set her free, but he guided them out of the building and left with the keys, and the building was empty for the whole weekend. No one saw or heard from her ever again. Mr. Rivers didn't see any point in respecting his inferiors, and he refused to learn his students' names. Instead, they were each assigned a number on the first day, which is how he'd referred to them for the rest of the semester. Because of the ever-growing school enrollment, his class was almost completely full, with 30 total students. One evening, after an especially infuriating day, he sat at his desk grading papers, most of them failing. An attendant from the office came by with a note, saying they'd received a message for him. It read,
"Your cruelty is self-serving. Try teaching with kindness. Number 31. I have no student 31.
He sat there, staring at the note. He knew there was no student 31, and the thought that someone in his class was pranking him only infuriated him more. The following day, he reprimanded each of his classes, threatening all kinds of punishments if the student behind the prank didn't come forward. Nothing did any good, and nobody had anything to say.
Then the only fair thing to do,
He said,
is give everyone detention.
and he spent the evening supervising all of his students working in silence until the building closed. The students had gone back to their dorms, and he was preparing to leave. As he put on his jacket, he noticed a paper on his desk he hadn't seen before. It read,
It's not too late for you. Number 31.
He looked around the empty room and tore into the hallway, desperate to catch whoever left the note, and spent the following day making even more severe threats than before. Getting nowhere, he dismissed his classes and worked in a state of rage throughout the day in the quiet classroom. Several hours passed as he graded the same few papers, unable to focus, and he rubbed his sore eyes in frustration. It was time to call it a night. But when he stood up, he nearly screamed. He'd been alone for hours in that room, but now, behind him on the blackboard was a sprawling message written in chalk.
Don't turn your back on me.
He stumbled from the room, disoriented and choking on the air, and fled from the building. The next day, the students learned he'd be taking a week of medical leave, which turned into 2 weeks, and then a month, and finally, permanent retirement. No one at the school ever saw Mr. Rivers again. The following summer, the gutted classroom was being remodeled, and the wall that held the blackboard was torn down. Stuffed inside, construction workers found the long, mummified body of a young girl.
The Blackboard, told by Hannah Mary Simpson, featuring Bryan Renaud.